All right, so just gonna get rolling then, I guess.
Yeah, I'll probably get going here. Joe, what conference were you at?
I was at the Frontier Institute. We had our summer meeting.
Okay.
Our
Yeah,
big
here.
push is education liberty.
What's that?
Education liberty, and we also vetted candidates for the Montana State Supreme Court.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
So we had Corey Swanson and Dan Wilson,
Hmm.
who
And
Uh-oh.
yeah, someone in the state of Montana didn't like that.
Yeah, it's the
Shut it
deep
down.
state.
Yeah.
think I canceled myself out there.
All right. So welcome to episode 114 of Farm to Markets. Today we were talking about the Trump tax cuts, the lipstick index, the national debt, social media stars, and Joey Chestnut. So, with the Trump tax cuts set to expire soon, the political fight over extending them is underway. Opponents of the tax cuts argue they have disproportionately benefited the wealthy and contributed to a ballooning federal debt. Proponents argue the tax cuts have boosted household savings, increased worker productivity, improved business profitability, and been a major contributor to low unemployment and to the low unemployment rate. Should the tax cuts be extended or made permanent? Alex.
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think if anything, the business tax cuts are probably one of the best things we could possibly do. If you want to incentivize businesses to hire people and continue doing business in the United States, I think you should try to do as much carrot as possible before you use sticks, like tariffs or subsidies, that kind of stuff, to try and brute force your way into convincing people to do business here. I would much rather see business tax rates go lower and stay low, but even payroll taxes continuing to be low, I think is a great policy. I am largely of the opinion that people who pay net zero or net negative income taxes don't need a tax cut. So I when a lot of the policymakers who oppose these complain about the tax cuts not helping, the poor, the working class, it's largely because they're already not paying anything at all. A lot of people will receive more back from the federal government than they pay in, which net negative taxes. So, I don't think we need to be giving those people any more tax breaks or tax credits or tax cuts or anything else. I think you really want to be incentivizing productive workers and productive businesses to continue hiring and to continue working. If you want to keep the economy chugging along, it is a great policy to reward people for doing productive things. So I think raising business taxes, raising payroll taxes, raising income taxes, any of these things, they're only going to hurt the economy. As far as the federal budget is concerned, the Trump tax cuts led to record revenues. So if the federal government's running a massive deficit, which it is, that seems to be more of a spending problem than it is a revenue.
I think that some of the opponents of the Trump tax cuts are being rather disingenuous with some of their rhetoric. First off, is that they make it sound like our budget deficits is the result of giving tax breaks to the wealthy, when nothing could be further from the truth. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can just check. There's a bazillion Google sites which will tell you what the deficit has been going back to prior to the tax cuts of 2017. Just about every year they've increased, except for the times where the government shut down the economy and made it basically impossible for people to make a living, to have anything worth taxing. Um, Secondly, is that when you say that the wealthy disproportionately benefit from tax cuts, that's kind of like if Tom is habitually punching me in the face, and Alex doesn't get punched in the face, and then Tom magnanimously says that from this point forward I'm not going to punch Joe in the face anymore, and Alex says, well, what about me? What are you gonna do? What nice thing are you going to do for me? that's kind of what this whole tax cut is that disproportionately people who make more than $100,000 a year, and that means joint $100,000 a year in America, pay the lion's share of the taxes. If you make less than $100,000 as a family, the taxes you pay is really quite minimal. So any tax cuts that go to the people who actually pay the taxes, well, that's logically going to benefit them. We don't have a taxing problem in America. We have a spending problem in America. The fact is that a lot of times the opponents of the tax cuts will go back to the Eisenhower years where the top marginal tax bracket was 94%. The reality is that nobody actually paid 94% of their income in taxes because there was a lot more opportunities to avoid taxes than there are today. Art Laffer has written extensively on this issue. And the reality is that in America, by and large, people will avoid paying more than 25% in taxes. And anything north of that, you're not going to get it because people will just change their behavior until they stop being taxed. If you tax them at 25% or less, the odds are pretty good you'll actually collect it.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, the Laffer curve. Yeah, it's kind of seen that where you tax them, but not too much. Yeah, the revenues go up. Definitely see that. The other thing is, I guess what I would like to see is that before you start raising taxes on like middle class and like small business owners, I would consider like going through and find out what you're spending money on that doesn't really need to be spent on. Because when I'm considering buying something in my household, if we haven't had it before, the first thing I got to stop and think about is like how I've been living my life without it, for this long, without it. And I'd imagine there's probably a number of things that the government spends money on that could probably, they could probably do without. There's a lot of programs, stuff like that, I imagine could be reduced or done away with before they start taxing the middle class, essentially. So yeah, so I'm a proponent of keeping the tax cuts and then just doing a real good job of going through the federal budget and deciding like what should and should not be in there. But good luck with that.
Yeah.
All right. So next question is that Leonard Lauder, I believe how you say it, created what he calls the lipstick index following 9/11 and the recession that came with the terror attacks. What he claims is that the purchase of cosmetics, especially lipstick, is inversely correlated to the performance of the American economy. In short, he argues that when the economy is doing poorly, women cut back on larger purchases and replace them with smaller items like cosmetics. Lauder thinks that the monetization is a better measure of lipstick these days, but the point remains. Will the measures aren't, excuse me, sorry, I'm sorry. While the measures aren't scientific, they can be more predictable at a coming economic they can be predictive of a coming economic downturn. At the moment, the higher end beauty and cosmetics are outselling lower cost items. Do you think this means the economy is due for a good reset, or is due for a good rest of 2024?
It's tough to say. There's all kinds of these. There's Big Mac indexes and there's lipstick indexes and whatnot. As of right now, I don't see any big red warning sign flashing, emergency, everything's about to hit the fan and explode in our faces. So from that standpoint, sure, I think everybody just kind of wants to wait and see what the Fed does on interest rates and who's going to win this presidential election. I don't think black swan events can happen, events that nobody can predict can happen at any time, but barring World War III breaking out or something like that, I think we're probably due for more of the same until the Federal Reserve decides one way or another on interest rates, and America decides if they want a second Biden or a second Trump term. So sure, yeah, I think 2024 from a stock market and economic performance is probably going to be about what we've seen so far.
Mark Twain once quipped that one of the reasons he had such good teeth is because he had rye whiskey for breakfast for most of his adult life. There's the ad hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy, which says that one thing causes another. And I realize that Mr. Lauder is not actually saying that he's actually just using this as an indicator of where the economy is going. But I have no idea if there's any meat to the lipstick index. I will say that other people have come up with indexes that are similar, like the Starbucks index, that people will tend to pay for $5 coffees when they can't afford bigger luxuries. That when they're incapable of being foolish with large amounts of money, they'll be foolish with small amounts of money. With that said, in just about every economic decline or stock market decline that we've experienced, it came like a thief in the night. It just kind of happened out of nowhere. And there's always the pundits who say, well, I've been telling you this, but even broken clocks can be right twice in the same day. And most media pundits have a Rolodex of people that are bullish and bearish. And in bull markets, they talk to the bulls and the bears. And in the other markets, they talk to the bulls and the bears. But the reality is that if we actually knew when these things were coming, we'd be a heck of a lot richer than we are. The main thing to do is that read the stuff and be entertained by it, but don't make your investment decisions because of it.
And sorry, I flubbed up the end there, but he apparently right now he thinks moisturizers, so like lotion and stuff like that, is a better index than the lipstick index is at this point. So sorry, I messed that part up, but I'll include that as well. And again, I don't think it matters. I mean, I think at any point in time you can correlate anything with whatever the market's doing at that point. I would be curious to see, like, the Starbucks one is pretty interesting. I was over there the other day and purchased a decaf coffee that was cold instead of hot. And I think I almost paid $10 for the cup of coffee. Like, I almost spit my coffee out as I was looking at the price on the register, because that thing was expensive. And I went back to verify the price, and it's expensive. If you put coffee over ice at Starbucks across the street here, it's expensive. So I probably will not be doing that again. So if things get if the economy goes for a downturn, I can definitely see people cutting back on like specialty coffees. Maybe just getting like a regular. I don't know. I haven't been to Starbucks that much, so I'd have to go see what a regular cup of hot coffee costs compared to like one that's over ice, and see what the difference is. But I was shocked to see how much I was spending on coffee. So I definitely think there's probably some truth to that. But as far as the cosmetics things go, my wife, she buys makeups and moisturizers and stuff like that. And I don't know, maybe it's because we've been in a long bull market lately, and the economy's been doing relatively well. But I haven't really seen any change in the products that she uses. But no, I'd be curious though. Like Starbucks, man, I was shocked. Like I bet there's some truth to that one. At least from what I saw the other day. So.
Well, the next time you have an inkling for an iced coffee, consider going another 100 meters to your north and going to McDonald's.
Yeah,
it tastes just as good, and they cost about a third as much.
I know. I think I was stuck in the '90s when, I think I remember my dad getting a cup of coffee in Seattle for a dime. I don't know if that was just, I don't know what that was, but yeah, I just, I felt bad and I was ashamed of myself for spending so much time, but I wasn't ready for it though. I mean, you include the tip in that, and I was just like, what am I doing? But you're right. I can just go to the, just at home, just pour it over ice, and it would be just as fine. So. All right, let's see here. Okay, so the national debt, in case you didn't know, we have a lot of it. The national debt is approaching $35 trillion, and about $1 and about 1.5 to 2 trillion budget deficit seems to be becoming the new normal. Historically, prior to World War I, the national debt never got higher than 32% to GDP. And that was just once during the Civil War. From Woodrow Wilson through the end of the 1940s, debt to GDP topped out at around 120%. Between 1950 and 1985, the national debt declined to around 30% of GDP. Since the mid-'80s, though, it has surged to a near record 124%, down slightly from about 130% during the COVID pandemic. Debt hawks are in full panic mode, arguing that the debt will inevitably blow up in our faces. But economists like Paul Krugman argue that the debt doesn't matter and that simply making mild spending cuts and stabilizing the debt will, over time, render it harmless. Which side do you take?
So I guess in theory, on paper, he's not entirely wrong. With enough time, if the federal government were to get its spending under control and inflation does what it does over time, yeah, he's not wrong. The problem is he and others like him have been saying this for decades, and the federal debt has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So it may not matter in theory, but in practice, we're eventually going to have a very serious problem. Now, I've mentioned this before. I was reading this from some economists a few years back now, and what they found is that if a country in the modern era, so basically since the Federal Reserve, early 1900s, Federal Reserve era, any country around the world that has reached 180% of debt to GDP has either defaulted on its debt actually, where they just didn't pay their debts, or they inflated their way out of debt. So if we can't get spending under control and it continues to climb as it has been for 40 years now, eventually we're going to get to that 180% range, and you're either going to see a debt default, which is unlikely, or more likely, they're going to fire up the printing presses, which is not going to be good for anybody. So I take the position that if the federal government runs a deficit at all, it should be very small and should probably be for a good reason like war. Otherwise, there's not really a great reason to, from a budget standpoint anyways, to run a deficit. But as economists will tell you, massive federal deficits are very stimulating to the economy. So I cannot envision that they're going to tighten their belts anytime soon. But I would very much like them to. They're not going to, but I would like them to.
If you're looking for indicators on how, where the economy is going, any Fortune 500 company or any sovereign nation which hires Paul Krugman to give them economic advice, sell that entity short, because he's been wrong so many times. It's almost an indicator. Do the exact opposite of whatever Paul Krugman says. One rule that I tend to follow is that I don't really listen to Keynesian monetary theorists who don't have any children. Paul Krugman doesn't have any children. John Maynard Keynes didn't have any children. So when they talk about this kind of stuff, they're not sensitive to the impact these decisions will have on the future generations. Debt at the national level tends to be cumulative. That the people who get hosed are the people who are last in line. So we need to get spending under control. I don't think we have the political will to do it. But as Winston Churchill quipped, is that you can always count on America to do the right thing after they've already tried every other option. And what will end up happening is that we'll have our backs against the wall, and we'll have a Greece-like situation where we'll be forced to go into austerity. There'll be a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth, and we'll actually get through it. When Calvin Coolidge was president, he was dogmatically working with his financial advisors to get the American deficit under control, and he succeeded. Almost wiped out the national debt, but didn't quite make it, but certainly balanced the budget. It's doable. I just don't think we have the kind of statesmen that are necessary to make it work.
Yeah, I think I saw. I think I might have said that we may have talked about this a while ago, but one of the things I noticed is that while the debt to GDP is high relative to history, the debt payments, like the actual payments that you have to make relative to GDP, are actually somewhat low because of the low interest rate. So basically, the U.S. has basically been able to borrow cheap. So even though the actual amount of debt is high, the payments on that debt are historically relatively low. And I think that's what's getting us by right now. So as the Treasury is spending 5% on short-term debt, that may start impacting it. But the biggest thing that's been helping the US is the fact that they've been able to borrow at incredibly low interest rates. And that's what's been getting it by. But I agree with you guys. Like something needs to happen. It's kind of like the movie I shouldn't have watched when I was younger called Austin Powers, where he's like waiting to get hit by the steamroller, and the whole clip is like probably like 2 minutes long of him yelling like "No!" waiting to get hit by the steamroller, and then he jumps out of the way at the last minute. But they pan back, and he's got like 100 yards between him and the steamroller. Here, it's kind of the same thing, except you actually get hit by the steamroller, 50 years down the road. So everybody knows we need to do something about it, but it's just, there's just more popular things that people want to do to get themselves elected. So I doubt anybody's going to pick up that mantle until they absolutely have to do something about it.
I thought he got ran over in the movie.
Did he? I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it.
I could be wrong. I thought he got run over. After 2 minutes of screaming, they finally run him over.
Oh, did they? Oh, you're right. I bet you're right.
I would have to go back and rewatch that, but I think so. To Joe's point, that might be what has to happen: is the legs have to start getting flattened before.
Yeah, I bet you're right. I bet you're right. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I think you're right. So, all right. So, anyways, okay. So many people dream of becoming YouTube stars. I don't know if you guys have, but according to the Wall Street Journal, lots of people dream of becoming YouTube stars, I guess. So apparently there's YouTube stars like Mr. Beast, who I've yet to see, and there's some other people on TikTok. But and they tend to make pretty good money doing that. But for most who pursue careers as content creators, just making ends meet apparently is a lofty goal. So a guy named Clint Brantley, who the Wall Street Journal, I guess, interviewed for this article, is a full-time creator. He's been a full-time creator for 3 years, and he posts videos on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch, where he basically just comments on news and trends related to online gaming, the online game Fortnite. Despite having more than 400,000 followers and posts that average 100,000 views, per view. His income last year was less than it was about $58,084. So it's about $58,000 with all of his YouTube stuff, based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics data. Are you surprised that social media influencers, the majority of them, are not making more money than they actually are?
Am I surprised they're not making as much money? No. In large part, this is an industry that has an extremely low barrier of entry. Anybody with a phone or a laptop with a camera built into it can basically start a YouTube or a Twitch or a TikTok channel. Oftentimes it's early entrants win out. Other times they have a very unique blend of content that people want to see, plus maybe their style of humor. But like I said, anybody could be a social media influencer. I could go on TikTok right now and start creating 35 videos a day and make basically no money at it, because who'd want to watch that? But the ones who do a very good job, most of their money, from my understanding, actually comes from like Patreon and other donations, and not through monetized YouTube videos. The YouTube monetization pays a little bit, but it's really those people who are throwing a couple bucks a month at you. If you can get 10, 20,000 people paying you a couple of dollars a month, which is how a lot of the big stars really make some money, you can start making a lot of money really fast. But basically, a lot of these people are just pumping content into the void and hoping that people watch and that people will eventually pay. I'm not surprised. I don't think they should, quote unquote, get paid more, because ultimately they're shopping for customers. They want people to give them money, and if they're not providing something that people don't want to pay for, then why should they make more money?
I'm not surprised at all. The joy that comes from being on social media is intoxicating. And as a result, there's lots and lots of people who are flooding the market and essentially giving away their talents for nothing. It's like being a wildlife photographer or a studio guitarist for Bruce Springsteen, is that just to have the opportunity to sit in the same room with Bruce Springsteen and play guitar, Bruce Springsteen might be worth $500 million, but that studio guitarist is lucky to make 40 grand a year. And it's the same like wildlife photographers, is that everybody's in Glacier Park taking pictures of the wolves, and they sell their stuff to National Geographic to the point where 1/100th of 1% make a living enough to where they can actually feed their family, and everybody else is just scrambling for pennies and have to do wedding photos to make it ends meet. So no, if it was unfun, if it was like cleaning porta potties or being a trial lawyer where you're basically having to deal with really bad stuff on a daily basis, you might make money like a trial lawyer. But the fact is, it's fun, and as long as it's fun, it will not pay very much.
Yeah, exactly. There's no shortage of people like wanting to live in their vans full time, like one of those Sprinter van, Mercedes Sprinter vans, and like film themselves like traveling around America and like getting paid for it. I think the fact that you can make $60,000 doing that at all is pretty remarkable. I mean, people pay you to just road trip around the country and like cook in your van. Like there's so many people that have like a Sprinter van on YouTube, like filming themselves living out of their truck, their van, like whatever. There's no demand for that, and it's basically like who's got the best cinematography and is like the most creative to get the best viewers going to get it. And you're right, like a lot of these people, like after they've been doing it for a while, they get like Verizon or AT&T to like plug their stuff. So like, hey, I'm out in the middle of the wilderness, but my AT&T keeps me connected, and then and you start seeing stuff like that show up in there. So yeah, they make money other places, and I've seen a lot of Patreon. I was trying to learn the guitar a little while ago. Uh, a lot of these videos I'd watch be like, here's some free content. Hey, look me up on Patreon, if you want more like detailed stuff. And you go on there and it's relatively inexpensive. So I think that's kind of a clever strategy. It's like if I only have to pay you a couple bucks, the friction there isn't that bad. And if you can get, like Alex said, if you can get a couple thousand people to do that, now you're making okay money doing it. But yeah, I'm not at all surprised that YouTubers are not making as much as we originally thought. So no surprises here. All right, so Joey, we talk about this every 4th of July, but Joey Chestnut is the winner of 8 consecutive Nathan's Famous International Hot Dog Eating Contest titles. So he will not be participating in this year's competition due to the deal he made to represent a rival hot dog brand, according to Major League Eating or the MLE. They confirmed that, I guess, last Tuesday. So organizers of Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest said last Tuesday that they banned Chestnut from the 4th of July event after he signed an endorsement deal with Impossible Foods, which, if you remember, we talked about in the show, they make, I guess fake meat or like, lab grown meat. It's not actually meat. It's like, it looks like meat, but it's not. They have the Impossible Burger. I think they have like some steak now or something like that. But apparently the Major League Eating, the organization that oversees professional competitive eating, again, said in a statement that Chestnut had chosen to represent a rival brand rather than compete in the storied Coney Island hot dog contest. So what do you think? I mean, do you think should the Coney Island hot dog eating contest allow Joey Chestnut to compete just because he's sponsored by Impossible Foods, or do you think they're right to ban him?
I mean, it's probably not a smart idea to antagonize your primary sponsor. So from that standpoint, no, they probably shouldn't let him compete. I'm sure he probably knew this was going to happen. I mean, how could you not? If they sprung it on him last second, surprised him with, oh, by the way, now you can't compete, then maybe that's kind of a scummy thing. But what I think would be fun is if he basically live streamed himself sucking down Impossible hot dogs, basically concurrent to the event on YouTube. So
Yeah.
so that he could basically like digitally crash the eating competition. That I think would be a lot more fun than showing up and eating the hot dogs.
Yeah.
I love having Alex on our show. The price of admission to listen to Alex is doing this every week, but I love those comments. No, I don't think that Joey should be given any special treatment just because he's the 8-time champion for eating hot dogs. he knew what he was getting into. He made a business decision, and he's made his bed. Let him lie in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess it's just like I guess I can see where the Nathan's famous hot dogs is coming from, is that you don't want anybody like repping your competitor on the stage. And I don't know if they had a contract with him, I guess then I guess he knew it. But if they didn't and they just decided to ban him, I think that's a little little dirty pool there. But at the end of the day, it's like, can you just turn your shirt inside out and just for the Nathan's hot dog contest, we just don't have your sponsor on there because it's a conflict. Or Nathan's gonna be like, look, we're so confident in our hot dog that Impossible Meats isn't going to be a problem for us. Go ahead, wear your Impossible Foods t-shirt. We don't care. Like, we love our hot dogs. I think that'd be a classy thing to do, but I don't know. I
Maybe the
just thought
better
this was
thing-
hilarious. I mean, you read all the other stuff in the news, and then even competitive eating has like all this scandal and controversy. So there you go.
Maybe the better thing would be to just say that they're not even hot dogs. Like Impossible Meats doesn't make real hot dogs, so it's not even an issue.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
negotiated Impossible Meats that way.
Right. Yeah. Just make a big deal. It's like, look, we don't care because it's not meat. They're not hot dogs, so we don't think they're a competitor. There you go. That's brilliant. Yeah. Yeah. You should
I'll
work
put a
for-
plug in for Nathan's hot dogs. I don't know if you've ever had one, but
Mhm.
Drew and Kayla brought over Nathan's hot dogs for Father's Day a couple of Sundays ago, and I'm not a big hot dog eater, but I like them, and we had some extras, and man, they were really tasty.
Mhm.
You get those in the supermarket, or how do you?
They must.
you can
Okay.
buy
Yeah,
them
they
at the
must. They were
store.
just their name brand Nathan's hot dogs. So
Oh, really? Okay.
Them, Snake River Farms, their all beef franks are really good too.
Oh,
You
nice.
pay for them, but those are good beef hot dogs.
Yeah. Interesting.
I'm not
kinda wanna-
sponsored by them. I just like to eat them. So
Yeah, you can run an ad for them. We'll see if they pick us up, but I doubt it.
yeah.
I want to try the Impossible Meats, like either the steak or the burger, just to see what all the just to see how it is. Like does it get closer or not? So that's something I'd be kind of considered to do. It's just I don't know that I haven't tried either. Maybe I've eaten a Nathan's hot dog. I have no idea, but I'd be curious to know how both of them taste, I guess. So
Mhm.
all
what was
right.
the name of that movie with Will Smith where there was like creatures that were created through some kind of DNA problems or whatever? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I Am Legend.
I
Yeah.
Am Legend.
The
Yes,
cancer
I Am
cure
Legend,
went
that's it.
haywire or something.
That's my biggest fear of eating impossible meat is that somehow I'll turn into an I Am Legend creature.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't even know what they put in it, but I guess I don't even know what Nathan's puts in their hot dog. So there you go. So,
Impossible meat.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So all right. So that's it for episode 114 of Farm to Market. So we'll see you again.